Hey everybody, Adrian here with blendrecommender.com, and want to talk a little bit about distinguishing, categorizing pipe tobacco blends. A lot of controversy on exactly what category a blend would fit into, if it contains Latakia. Is it automatically an English blend? Subcategories there. You've got Scottish blends, you've got Orientals, Balkans. What comprises, or what would a blend need to contain to be, pigeonholed, if you will, into one of these neat little categories? And so, on my website, I've got blends within the seller, that page, listed the way the manufacturer has listed them. What I've discovered is I don't agree with a lot of the designations that manufacturers give their own blends. So at some point I will probably revamp my own system there. And so I've been doing some homework. I've read some great articles. I will put some links below to some of the ones that I read from Russ Willett, which was great, and also Greg Peace, GL Peace. He had some great insight. He's obviously done plenty of homework. Both of those have been blending for a really long time and have done their own research into what comprises different blends. And as you'll see, they don't always agree with ultimately how their blends get marketed. So I thought that was really interesting. But I think the closest to what I would go with, what I'd be okay with, was Russ Willett's breakdown of how he distinguishes between blends. And I think the consensus, if you could call it that, because there's certainly not a clean-cut consensus out there, at least what I found online, on how to designate different blends. But an English blend has changed over time, what that definition means. And it also varies on where you are in the world. If you live in England, you're not calling blends that contain Latakia an English blend. They typically, from what I see, refer to those blends as Latakia blends or Latakia mixtures. And here in America, we, or at least I know a lot of other people in the pipe smoking community, first thought when Latakia is involved is it's an English in some form or fashion. And that may not always be the case or correct. Originally, English blend was developed, that moniker, that name was actually designated to blends that were unadulterated, being produced in Britain. There for a while, I believe in the early 20th century, pipe tobacco was very heavily regulated under purity laws, as they called them. And the British government basically said that manufacturers of pipe tobacco could not alter their tobacco with artificial, casings, toppings, anything like that. So in the world market, those natural blends that weren't heavily cased or topped became known as English blends. Somewhere in the mid 20th century to late 20th century, that definition shifted after the purity laws were lifted, and maybe just because of the prevalence of British-made mixtures that did contain at least some Latakia, we kind of grabbed onto that and just generically called all of those blends English. I started looking at how some blends were listed, and one of my viewers actually commented and asked me, within the Frog Morton series by McClellan, very similar components, at least base components, across the pipe tobaccos, with just some small changes, like On the Bayou has Perique, and Across the Pond, features more Orientals, and also has the Syrian Latakia as opposed to the Cyprian Latakia. But ultimately, the base tobaccos are very, very similar. And McClellan has actually listed a few of those as being English, while others being Balkan or Oriental. And so, that was kind of confusing, and I felt the same way. I thought it was confusing as well. So, in doing my research, I think it was Greg Peace who said, or it could have been Russ Willett, said that what distinguishes an English, the way we define it now, and an Oriental / Balkan mixture is the percentages of Latakia to Orientals, and these blends both typically have plenty of Virginia in it. So if we've got a heavier percentage of Latakia than the Orientals, like Izmir or Smyrna or Basma, those brighter leaves from Greece and Macedonia and what had been the Turkish Empire, then if it is heavier on the Orientals than the Latakia, then it's going to be considered either a Balkans or an Oriental blend. I could not find a definitive distinguishing characteristic to be able to say this is Balkan, this is Oriental. So I see the two are being used interchangeably. From now on, I think that's the way I'll go. I think the term Balkan probably just became popular and interchangeable with the rise of popularity of the Balkan Sobrani, and it being used, the word Balkan in that name. I think blends that were similar to that all kind of got lumped in, and for whatever reason they were no longer called Orientals or English, and they became kind of known as Balkan blends. So Scottish mixtures, another subcamp there. A lot of people say that Dunhill My Mixture 965 is an excellent example of a Scottish mixture because it contains a little bit of Cavendish. That's what would separate it, and a Scottish blend is an English blend that contains some percentage of Cavendish. Maybe. It's listed as an English. Dunhill listed as an English. Davidoff has their Scottish mixture. It doesn't contain Cavendish. It is called Scottish mixture because it is flavored with Scotch whiskey. So it is listed, it is actually advertised as a Scottish blend. So there's definitely no consensus there with Scottish blends. We can come up with a definition, all try to agree on it going forward, and we can move some blends here and others there, and going forward maybe we can all try to agree, or at least agree to disagree.